Hello everyone, Sidewind here. Today I'm going to be showing how you can age a male character in Vroid Studio. For context, this model is made in a non-Vroid style, but the same tips and tricks apply with Vroid. It's just I found that sometimes having this other style can make it look less like Vroid and potentially make it more obvious how I'm aging the character. So I'm starting with the face here. The biggest thing you can do, and this is also the easiest, is you want to reduce your eye size as much as possible. Since this character also has narrow eyes, I'm going to keep narrowing them beyond what the normal was. And you can see that already made the character look a good bit older. You can also sometimes move them in and down, but that depends on exactly the proportions. Next, you want to start looking at the bottom of the face. You might want to use face paint for this. So if it fits the character, you might want to add a bit of facial hair. Because having a little bit can help. Essentially, it's associated like a scruffier beard or goatee or something is more common on older characters with anime, so it can help you get that. And in this case, I'm also going to show a little bit of shading here because you rarely, if ever, want to leave something on the face drawn totally flat. You might notice my hair texture here is actually flat, but that's a little different. And I'm not good with drawing beards, so this isn't the best representation, but I think you get the idea that I'm going for here. And note, I'm really bad at this, so there might be a little bit of perfectionism not helping in, I draw every line multiple times. But it essentially can help with just, it's likelier that men rather than teenage boys will have a beard of some kind or some other facial hair, and that's especially true with anime. Because basically, this character is a shonen protagonist type. I'm gonna make sure. I had a little visual glitch on my end for a second there. Next, I'm going to start adding a couple of wrinkles. This is, again, it's probably the quickest way, aside from the eyes. So the first one I always like to do is to go at the sides of the mouth and add small lines. However, you might note that this can significantly age a character, so if you're going for someone in their 20s to 30s, you might not want to apply these specific lines, or you might want to try and make them as small as possible. And note, if you're using this for VTubing, which I'm sure most people watching are, you generally want to make these lines bigger or deeper to stand out farther. Alright, so there's those two mouth lines. Another one is to add small lines on the side of the eyes. I like to go with the outside corner first. And again, you shape these up a little bit, like your initial, and this is illustrating one mistake you should constantly fight, which is basically make sure that you're not bleeding the skin itself. And the other thing is a line underneath the eyes. You generally want to get cut relatively close here. This either gets a older or a tired look, depending on how you draw it. You do want to make sure that it's not flaring out on this end, but you know. And this should be enough to communicate the character is a bit older than your average shonen protagonist. And to make the wrinkles more visible at a distance, you might add a couple of darker lines. Generally, you want to try and make it warmer tones rather than cooler tones. Essentially, stick more towards the side closer to the color rather than to grays, because the grays can make it can make a character look very washed out, basically. The other wrinkle you can do is on the forehead. This is probably the one that seems the most obvious, and you might even do a set of them. But I tend to make them a little smaller and a little more centered. And then usually I end up deepening them in a few places. I tend to go for the underside, but you can also go above. Now, if your eyebrows allow it, you want to bring them down a bit. Like, you'll note that if I bring the eyebrows up, makes look younger, bring them down, makes older or more serious. So in this case, I'm going to bring them down a bit. And this is already, like, again, pretty good. One other shading thing you might do with the hair is going in and shading underneath it. This is more of a general thing with cell shading styled models. I didn't do it before hitting record, so I'm just going to do that now. And the tone's slightly off here. With shadows, you sometimes want to go for a cooler tone, but you can get the point here. And in this case, I am going to go in and swap it to a cooler tone just to see if it helps a bit, which it does. Okay. So that's the majority of the tutorial, but I'm going to mention one last thing here. Note that this will push the age even older. Like right now with all the wrinkles, I would say that most people would probably estimate the character at a, like, let's say 40s. And that's, like, generally I think it's a pretty good start. You might also deepen this shadow a little bit on the bottom of the chin. But sometimes it can make the chin disappear or blend in with the neck because I used the same technique there. But sometimes you also want to, if you're going older than that, start making it so that the hair and eyelashes look gray. The way you do that is you can go into, for the eyebrows, you can add an additional layer, go to the bottom here, select overlay, and then you change it to a grayish tone, at which point you can lightly color right within the lines. And you'll note it creates a more gray tinted version of what you already have. And that can at least give you a start to getting it to the actual gray that you want. Then you can also always go back to your base. No, like I'm going to finish coloring over here. You can always draw directly on the base layer as well, or draw without overlay so that it just goes directly over top. Like for instance, if you wanted to add flecks of gray in the hair. But in that case, you usually want to find a tone more similar to the character's hair color. And you can do the same thing with the hair. So like I used a flat hair texture here. But let's say you're going to just use Vroid's default here. Just clicking over here. You can set the main color to your main hair color and then the highlight color to a grayish tone. And it can create a more graying type thing. If you're using a flat color like I am, you can pull the same type of thing with the layer, depending on what you're trying to do exactly. Like that makes it all gray by completely covering over. You can also just color the majority. You could color just the tips. And note, it applies it to every bit of hair. So, like, it'll apply consistently. If you don't, you can select individual strips. But if you do want it to apply everywhere, that can be a quick and easy way. You can also always take the hair color itself and shift it over towards the duller gray type tone. This can create a more like natural type of graying. So like I'll just use this as an example. Or well, closer to like graying the hair color. It's not really natural if the hair is blue. But basically your goal is to just add a couple of spots of gray and whatnot. With the body, sometimes you can draw wrinkles and such on, and you can change the clothing. Like, for instance, someone wearing a full suit jacket, or like most of these outfits, not really. But like you could take this one, the businessman type of suit, and it can help make a character look older. Whereas if I took the same exact character and put him in this, it does not help with maturity. Now, I'm not saying that an older character wouldn't wear this. It's just your average, like, it's just not commonly associated. So I am going to wrap up here. If you have any questions on this or want to see more tutorials like this, please like this video and make any comments you want to. Thank you for watching.